All right. So if you're here at Next on this Startup AI ML track, you probably noticed things are a little bit different in the AI ML world in the last 12 months. Just a few things have changed. And so we're really at a pretty big inflection point for AI here, right? What's happened here is that we're now interacting with these massive foundation models using a completely different paradigm than we've traditionally interacted with AI and ML. So these are multimodal models that we can interact with through the simplicity of natural language. We can build incredibly powerful consumer experiences. So many of you probably started out your awareness of these foundation models by using consumer chatbots or Stable Diffusion or some of those other products. And very quickly, those consumer solutions have jumped into the enterprise and business space. So we're seeing really rapid adoption by companies up and down the scale, from enterprises to seed stage startups, wanting to transform their business, wanting to build products, and wanting to provide generative AI experiences to their users. So this is a pretty big change from where we were at from an AI ML perspective in years past. So if you've been in the AI ML space for a while, you probably know that the early days of AI ML required a lot of really expert resources to build, tune, train, and maintain models. So you had models that were built from scratch. They had to be trained on enormous data sets. And training and maintaining those models was no small job. You had very large teams that were responsible for this, which essentially meant that most small companies were kind of locked out of using these tools. You had to have large, expert, expensive resources and teams in order to implement these solutions. And furthermore, you didn't know exactly what you were going to get. So you might spend a long time building a model, you might spend a long time training a model, and then all of a sudden you're testing that model and you're getting results that are maybe not quite aligned with your expectation. So models were powerful, but a bit difficult to control and certainly very resource intensive to manage and deploy. But the AI and ML of today is for everyone. So today we can offer you pre-trained foundation models and task-specific models that can be tuned and deployed with no code. So any developer can find these models and deploy them. We have model options for every task. So regardless if you're doing translation or you want natural language generation or image generation, we have a wide variety of model choices for you. In addition, we have robust tooling and infrastructure support to make that maintenance incredibly easy for you. So what this all means is that any developer, any company, whatever stage you're at, can get started today with very minimal expertise or background in AI and ML. And so the solution that Google Cloud is offering specifically in this space to empower developers to get started with AI ML quickly is Vertex Model Garden. So just to provide a little bit of context, if you're newer to Google Cloud or newer to Google Cloud AI, Vertex as a platform has actually been in market for a number of years. And initially, Vertex was built to provide an easy tooling solution for developers looking to build and maintain their own models. And so essentially, we had an infrastructure set up so that you could bring your own models, you could tune them, you could train them, and you could maintain them and deploy them to an endpoint. Model Garden extends all that capability by offering open source and first-party models directly in an easy-to-find interface, which can then be deployed on Vertex. So you can continue to bring your own model, but you can also find a number of models in Model Garden. And so really what this experience is a one-stop discovery shop. So we're going to see in the demo in just a minute. It's easy to search, easy to find, and easy to filter for the capabilities that you want based on the modality of the model, the topics that you're interested in, or the capabilities of the model itself. You can use foundation models directly as a frozen pre-trained base model, or you can tune those foundation models using a one-click stop from Vertex. And for the first-party models, you actually have direct API access to task-specific solutions like vision, speech, Doc AI, and other modalities. So what we're seeing in the foundation and task-specific models right now that customers are using is that even though there is a trend towards multimodality, customers are still interested in choice across modalities. So that means that there's very few customers that are picking one model for all of their language needs or one model for all of their image needs. Instead, selection, variety, and choice are key criteria for developers looking to deploy these foundation models. And so you can see here, these are some of the foundation models that we offer today across modalities, and this list is growing every day. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of basis around what you can expect in Model Garden and Vertex, but you might be wondering how you can actually get started with these things. We're gonna actually go through a demo in just a moment, but I wanna give you some tips before we even think about how to get into that environment. So before you start on your journey of deploying a model, you're gonna wanna define your use case clearly. And the reason that this is important is because as you select your model, you're gonna wanna have those criteria in mind. So what are you building? Who are you building for, and why are you building it? This will help your model selection process go a lot easier. Number 2, start testing with a pre-trained model. Often customers think that they need to tune a model right away because they have a very specific application or use case in mind. While we definitely encourage tuning and we offer a number of different ways to tune, we always recommend that you start with the base model. For one, it's easy. You can start doing it right away. And number 2, it gives you a sense of where the functionality or output gaps might be. So once you get those results from the base model, for example, you might get a sense of what types of test data that you want to use for your adapter tuning or for whatever tuning that you want to implement. So starting with that frozen base model, always a great step. 3, obviously you're going to want to assess the results and the data that you need for additional training. So the good news about using that base model to start with is you're going to get a bunch of data from it. You're going to get a sense of the performance of that model. Ideally, you're testing multiple models if you want to kind of get a better sense of the ecosystem that's available to you. And you're going to want to compare and decide, do you need additional tuning? Is this the right model for your use case? Do you need to do some additional exploring? And then finally, once you're kind of narrowing in on the model and the training that you want to do, you're going to want to train and test using Vertex model evaluation and other tools available in the Google Cloud ecosystem. So again, thinking back to that previous slide about the old days of AI/ML, testing and benchmarking was really, really difficult because it was often done ad hoc by developers writing code for the specific testing and tuning needs. With Vertex these days, we have a nice toolkit that allows you to get started really, really quickly without writing any code at all. All right, and with that, I'm actually just gonna hop into a demo here. And give me 1 second, I just wanna make sure this is clicking through here. All right, beautiful, okay. Success on the first click, okay. So what you're seeing right now is Model Garden. So if you have a Google Cloud account, you can find this today, this is GA. So you can see there on the left, we have a menu that allows you to filter by modality, by task, by a few different criteria. So I would definitely recommend that if you're just getting into Model Garden for the first time, you might start exploring there based off of your use case and just sort of poke around. But let's kind of imagine a use case here. So let's say I'm a developer at a biotech or a healthcare startup, and I want a model that's specifically been fine-tuned on medical data. So I'm gonna go in, search for medical. I found a pretty promising result here, Palmyra Med. And right now what you're seeing here is the model card. And so the model card, every model in Model Garden has a model card. And it's gonna give you a bunch of core information about the model's performance, about its attributes, about other kind of important information that you need to know. So I can see here that this model excels at summarizing medical information, which is terrific. I wanna summarize medical reports. So this model is looking pretty promising to me already. And the great thing about Model Garden, as you're seeing here on the screen, is that most models come embedded with a Colab notebook so that you can actually test the model directly from that model card. And so what you're seeing right now is Colab. So you probably might be familiar with this environment. This is our notebook environment. And so all of this is set up. You'll notice that this all came prepackaged. All the metadata was there. I'm just running this directly from that model card page. And so basically what I'm doing here is I'm providing a little bit of metadata about my project, about my account, about the buckets that I want to send the data to. Otherwise, everything's written here. I'm not writing any code. And so I'm just going to run a few slides or a few cells after I provide this metadata here. And again, this is something that you guys can do today in Model Garden right away. And so once I provide that metadata, I'm going to initialize the Vertex API. I'm going to define the Docker container, a few other common functions. And this is all being done just through clicks. Again, I didn't write any of this code. And then finally, I'm going to upload and deploy my model. And so what you're seeing right here, apologies for the small font, is some configurations around the hardware and accelerators. So again, you can choose that, choose whatever's right for you based off of your location, based off of your cost structure, and then ultimately I'm gonna deploy that model. So you saw that instantaneously. That was the magic of time lapse. That actually takes about 20 minutes. So if it takes you 20 minutes, don't be surprised. But we now have a deployed model. And so what you're seeing right here is actually there's a few pre-written prompts. And so you can go in there and either edit those prompts, run them directly, write your own prompts, adjust the parameters. So for this particular model, we have 2 parameters. One of them is max new token. The other is temperature. Those are just settings to determine the length of the output as well as the statistical variance. So temperature, hot topic in LLMs right now, but you can adjust that as you need to. And so I've decided to deploy my model. I'm back now in model registry. You can see that I've found Palmyra Med right there. And so let's say I'm ready to put this into production. I'm gonna go and click deploy and test, and then I'm gonna deploy to an endpoint. And so again, I wanna mention that I'm creating an API from that model, again, having not written any code. This is all purely from the notebook and from the UI. And so once I'm in this deploy to endpoint tab, there's just a few simple steps I have to step through here. So number 1, I'm gonna name my endpoint. I'm also gonna select the location of the hardware where I wanna deploy it and adjust a few access settings. If you would prefer different ones, you can either manage your own keys or have Google manage your keys for you through the standard settings. And so once I've sort of decided on those settings and that I'm happy with my results, I can continue on. And so this page is just gonna let me figure out how to distribute my compute resources. So this is really important in terms of scaling my model appropriately. Again, these are things that you can modify after you've deployed your model as well. But to get started, you'll just wanna make a few decisions about how you're gonna distribute traffic, which machines you want, the number of compute nodes, all that kind of stuff. And again, the good thing about Vertex is that you get a pretty robust set of documentation to kind of help you make those decisions. If you're feeling overwhelmed with the number of boxes to click or the number of fields to fill in, the good news is there's quite a bit of helpful tips here. So once I've done all that, I'm just gonna modify my traffic split here, continue to go on. And then finally, I'm going to implement model monitoring. So model monitoring is optional. You don't have to implement it, but obviously we strongly recommend that you use model monitoring. Model monitoring will make sure that your responses are not drifting away from your desired outputs. So again, this isn't something you have to build yourself. It's something that Google Cloud offers as a solution. You just need to opt into it. All right, and then finally, getting towards the last few pages here, there's a couple more pages that I can select on. So in terms of the monitoring objective, there's a few different criteria that you can use, either training, serving, skew detection, or prediction drift detection. Since I didn't tune this model myself, I'm gonna use prediction drift detection, but you can always use training, serving, skew detection. It's quite a mouthful of words if you do fine tune your model. And then finally, just a few more selections in terms of the criteria that I want to make for monitoring and other alert thresholds that I can optionally use at this stage. And I'm ready to deploy. All right. Beautiful. So there's my endpoint right there in the model registry. And that step also typically takes about 20 to 30 minutes, again, through the magic of time lapse. I'm just gonna hop over and show you what the API actually looks like once I've set it up. Google Cloud makes it super easy for you to get started as a developer here. We're giving you an SDK as well as some Python samples if you wanna start running that in your Cloud Console or your CLI of choice. All right, I do wanna mention one other thing though. If you do want to tune your model, there is a training tab in Google Cloud that allows you to do this. So right here, you're seeing a couple examples of data sets or annotation sets that you could use to do that training, as well as the objective that you can set. So again, we've chosen a medical model here. So these are probably not the right training data sets or annotation sets, but it gives you a sort of sense of the options you have. One option that you can consider if you're looking for open source data sets is using a solution like Kaggle. So for example, this is the view in Kaggle right now of just healthcare data sets ranked by usability, and you can see they have quite a bit. All of these are open source and scored. So I go into the disease symptom prediction tab. I can explore this data a little bit. They have sort of the model card equivalent on their data sets, as well as upvoting and a few other criteria. And I can see here on the right that it has a usability score of 9.7 out of 10, which is amazing. So just to tie back to Model Garden here, what I want to emphasize is that that experience can be had on any of the models that you can find in Model Garden. So that isn't just unique to this particular model or this particular functionality. That ease of deployment is available on any model that you're going to find in Model Garden. All right. Let me make sure this. Beautiful. Okay, and with that, I'm going to invite May to come up and tell you a little bit about how Writer is innovating in the space of generative AI.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am so excited to tell you about Writer and how we're working with Google and Vertex. And there's a small announcement at the end that we're very excited about. But first, I want to understand the audience a little bit. Who works at a startup smaller than 200 people? Okay, smaller than 100 people. Okay, who is generative AI native? I hate that term, but okay. Who's building a generative AI application or feature into their product? Okay, cool. What are you guys doing? I'm joking, but what is the interest level? What brings you to the session today? Funny that no one on this side raised their hand. Okay, awesome. Wonderful. Well, so excited, and hopefully we will answer and fulfill both sides of the room. We've got 5 models in Vertex Garden as of Vertex AI Model Garden as of a couple of weeks ago, including Palmyra Med, which we have open sourced, actually. So all 5 models are free and open source. And a lot of times when we talk to a customer who had been using one of our open source models that was on a platform, not Vertex, our best models are on Vertex, folks are like, so this actually works really well. What is the commercial offering? And why would I pay you? And I've had literally like CIOs of telcos ask us this question. And for both sides of the room, I think once you really dig deep into just how hard it is to go from a POC or something that works some of the time, most of the time, to real production scale, and it has to work all the time and be really good. That is where so much of the effort lies and so much of the complexity. And so the commercial part of Writer is really everything we've built on top of the models. And we're going to talk about the models and how we built them as well, too, for the folks interested in scope and what it takes. But what we have put together as our enterprise offering, what the logos on the previous slide were doing, is what we think are really the 3 essential parts of building a generative AI application that's ready for production. Yes, you've got the model, but paired with that for us is AI guardrails that include a ton of post-processing. And some of those post-processing services do use LLMs as well, but a lot of them are NLP. And we augment most of our use cases with a knowledge graph, not a vector database, which we should talk about as well, where our learnings came from for that. And the result is a product that allows folks to very quickly spin up multiple generative AI use cases. So we have been doing this now going on 2.5 years. So my co-founder and I were in the machine translation and localization business before. So we've been working with BERT and transformers for years, and really seeing the generative capabilities is why we started Writer in early 2020. So the good news for us is in this incredibly hot AI market, we've been able to talk to people about use cases that have been in production for a long time, and we're going to walk through some of those. But the story here really is in what starts at the very foundation, which is the LLM. And for us, the way that our architecture works is the model and the knowledge graph can actually be hosted inside of somebody's private cloud. This is part of our announcement a little bit later. We are excited to partner with Google on making that happen within GCP. And then the platform above is really customizable. Most of what generative AI is good at, we can characterize and kind of classify across 3 types of applications: create, analyze, govern. And so the use cases, and whether you are prompt engineering plus fine-tuning, or some prompt engineering, but then you're really building that index, whether you are doing a bit of prompt engineering, but then it's multiple layers of fine-tuning. So much of it comes down to what the use case is and what kind of capabilities are you drawing on. For us, everything that we are able to do today, and the enterprise use cases that I'll walk through in a bit, really are a result of some of the foundational, no pun intended, decisions that we've made for the company. Folks ask us all the time, look, layers 1 through 5 really look like they could sit on any model. Why did you build your own? And a big part of that is being able to control how all those layers work together, and be able to, over time, really invest in the increasing capabilities that can still be hosted by a customer in their own cloud, can still be fine-tuned in ways that aren't overly complex or require too much data, ways that they can be inspectable as well. So we've got customers who do ask to audit what is in our training data. We've got really strict, from a data perspective, policies as it relates to what goes into the foundation models training, what goes into knowledge graph, what goes into the use case fine-tuning and prompt engineering, and where those live and how they get shared between customers. The TLDR, they don't get shared between customers at all at any of those levels. But people really are interested in these decisions now. And for those of you who are building generative AI into your applications, the depth and sophistication of the security questionnaires we get now, the level of inspection rights people want to have on knowing what is in those models, even requests to indemnify. We have now actually indemnified customers in both financial services and healthcare, as a result of just being so confident around IP and copyright risks. So none of that would have been possible if we didn't develop our own models. Our whole business wouldn't have been possible. So from a deployment options perspective, that is obviously another big reason to own your own stack and not be too dependent on other models. If the applications really are needing to live in somebody's environment as a result of security or privacy, et cetera, that's become really important. And that played a big role in our pursuing the relationship with Google. And we've always been a GCP shop from, literally like the first $1 of credits. I think we might even still get credits. I don't know if that's allowed. But for us, partnering with GCP and Vertex was a no-brainer, and Google in general. So, that had a big role in kind of the way that we have gone to market. The knowledge graph, this is proprietary. This can live in somebody's private cloud. So we've got folks who host this within their GPC environments. And what we're doing essentially is using the model to create the metadata for everything that's in the knowledge graph. And then there are kind of a set of compression algorithms that decide what we're going to compress and what we're not going to compress, what we're going to feed into the model raw. And the result is a much higher level of accuracy and much lower cost over time, actually, for the kinds of use cases where you really have a high refresh rate for the knowledge that needs to be in that environment. And the reason we think full stack generative AI makes a lot of sense is most folks don't want to be rebuilding this infrastructure for each of the one of dozens of digital assistants that folks will want to build on any given team. So this has been a really big part of how we've expanded the footprint of the product from our original create use cases to our analyze and govern use cases. And lastly, this is the third leg of the product around AI guardrails and brand governance. And folks end up realizing as they're trying to take applications to production that an end user has really high expectations for what comes out of our AI apps. And you want to say, but look, you're 60% faster than you were before. And suddenly folks want to be 100% faster or 200% faster, right? They want the solution completed fully. And we have seen so much of sort of that last mile really be about the post-processing that needs to happen to make sure that that the answer or the generation is exactly what the impresses the user or that the user would do manually. So I thought we could spend time going through use cases. Most of these folks are folks that we share with GCP, and not everybody is self-hosting all parts of our stack. But these are multi-vendor engagements. So I was with somebody on the GCP team earlier with a shared telco customer, and the GCP friend asked the telco friend, wait a minute, I thought you guys were using us for XYZ support use case. And the reality is that in the enterprise, there are so many use cases, and the model's strengths, and this is what's so nice about Vertex AI and just the hopefully the depth of the models that are going to be there. What you're using them for is really knowing that use case is a big part of it plays a big role in kind of choosing the right model. So what's next for us and Google? It's been a really awesome kind of journey from the Google Startup Program to where we are today with Google, and so many of our joint customers from L'Oreal to Verizon are very excited that they're going to be able to use Writer from within Marketplace. So I can't speak more highly of the Google folks and their appreciation for the startup journey in all of its phases. Highly encourage everybody to scan this code and get all of these credits. You didn't hear it here, but you may actually get more credits than are on this slide if you ask real nicely. But thank you so much, Kaylin. It's great working with you all.
Great. And we'll be out front in the lounge if you have any questions, but thank you guys so much. It was great talking to you.